Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our In Conversation event today. We're so pleased to mark the International Day of the Girl Child 2021. And the theme this year is Digital Generation, Our Generation. We've assembled a fantastic group of women leaders to talk to us about the digital divide and how technology can be a great enabler for girls in accessing tools and skills to excel in life. But the reality for many girls is the digital reality demonstrates a real lack of access to technology and the internet compared to boys. Particularly in low-income contexts and countries, girls and women often struggle to afford and access technology and the internet, the basic tools that we need in place. So this In Conversation today is going to be an intimate and very important dialogue with women leading in this digital space in Pakistan, looking at the challenges as well as the opportunities for girls and women in tech. We'll be joined today by our moderator, Samar Hasan. Thank you very much, Samar, for joining us. And I'll just tell you a little bit about this amazing woman who I've had the opportunity to meet at the Women's Forum in Paris a few years ago, where she moderated a workshop that we put together to shine a light on the issues facing women entrepreneurs in Pakistan. And she has a deep history in this. Samar founded Epiphany as a catalyst for promoting impact, social inclusion, and women's entrepreneurship in Pakistan in 2016. She's an angel investor, an impact investing enthusiast, a serial entrepreneur, a startup strategist, and sustainability and gender specialist. Her expertise lies in setting up nascent organizations, and we need more women like Samar to get these things off the ground. She worked for more than 6 years as a core team member to establish a revolutionary liberal arts and technology education center at Habib University, and as part of that, served as a critical member of the team that conceptualized Karachi Institute of Technology and Entrepreneurship. Samar, we are so pleased to have someone of your caliber to moderate this conversation and to bring in the women leaders from Pakistan working on this issue. I'll hand over to you to moderate the conversation and to draw out, I guess, the issues that are holding some of this back, but also the opportunity to cross the digital divide, connect the digital divide with technology as an enabler. So I'm going to sound off and listen to the conversation along with our guests, and I'll come back at the end to close off. So Samar, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to be part of this important conversation. And, it always gives me great pleasure when the conversation is focused on bright Pakistani women and the enormous inroads that they've made regarding any challenge that you pick up. I think women are at the forefront, bearing the torch. They're the torch bearers. A lot of times they're doing extremely innovative stuff, which has not been done before. And part of that is, of course, problems that they themselves may have faced as part of their journey, which is what makes them very in tune and in sync with what the other beneficiaries require as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And I am extremely delighted to have two fantastic women who I've known now for the last few years. I can't even keep track, right? But I think 2016, 2017 onwards, when I first started looking at the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs and what I could potentially do to support them. Since then, I've known these ladies, and hats off to them. Lots and lots of accomplishments, which we'll talk about today. Because today marks the International Day of the Girl Child, which is also called the Day of the Girls, and the International Day of the Girls started back in 2012. It's a day to celebrate all the opportunities that have been created, while also highlighting the inequality in areas such as access to education, nutrition, legal rights, medical care, protection for discrimination, violence against women, forced child marriage, and so on, right? But at the same time, there are so many positive developments that take place, which are more often than not led by women, which at the end of the day have resulted in successful emergence of girls and young women as a distinct cohort in development policy, programming, campaigning, technology, research, and so on. So without much ado, let me welcome my two guests over here. So first, Faiza Yusuf. She's the founder of WomenInTechPK and co-founder CodeGirls. Faiza has over 11 years of experience in product development and has been a serial founder with a focus on initiatives related to gender inclusion and access to tech education. She is also the co-founder of CodeGirls, which equips young women and girls in coding skills. So welcome, Faiza. I will give an opportunity to both. I will give you both an opportunity to introduce yourselves as well, because it's a long list of accomplishments over here. Next, we've got Naureen Hyat, who's the co-founder of Teys Financial Services. Naureen and I also went to the same schooling system. Okay, so I always have to highlight that. We're both from Beacon House, but a few years apart. So Teys Financial Services is the first fully digital financial inclusion in Pakistan, and given Naureen's bent, just this year, she launched a series of videos for women around financial literacy and financial education, which is something really, really important. And I wish it was done, yesterday. But little by little, I think people are realizing the importance of treating women as the 50% population that they are in Pakistan, and the importance that they deserve, and how much capital they have, and how much potential they've got to take Pakistan and progress Pakistan. So Naureen was also the co-founder of Check-in Solutions, which was a fintech focused on enhancing operational efficiencies of microfinance providers via technology. So, okay, ladies, I think, I've said a little bit, but why don't we do a deep dive, Faiza? Let's tell us more about who you are. And what I'd really like to, dive into is why you do what you do, because I think that enables us really to talk about some of the challenges that you saw and you felt that you wanted to address them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samar, for the invitation and for the introduction. So my background is in technology. I studied from Unity University, went to almost a very, very male-dominated, engineering university, public university in Pakistan, and then I also did my master's from there. And technology itself has changed my life, and that is my why for what I do, because I know that it has the potential to do the same for other people. And when we talk about women empowerment in countries like Pakistan, we usually see that they encourage women to get jobs or work in informal sector, which is very low paid, and women are not part of the economy overall. So you will see them teaching women how to do arts and craft and stitching and a lot of other things. But women are not usually encouraged to get into careers that are male dominated or that have high earning potential, which is sad. So so the reason that we started CodeGirls was to basically give opportunity to girls who cannot afford private education or get to an engineering or technology university to get a degree, and to also include them in the economy by getting them hired in the tech companies where the earning potential is really high. So the demographic that we deal with is around a household that makes around 25 to 30,000 rupees per month. And when these girls graduate from the program and get hired, they make more than 30,000 as their first salary. So this changes the whole dynamic of the family, and they become like a very, very important part of the family in the sense that they now have the say in the decision making and a lot of other things. So this is like the we started as a tech education program, but this has converted into more into financial inclusion and making sure that women have a say in the family and the decisions that the family takes in terms of money and other resources.
Thank you so much, Faiza. And just so we can take a moment to reflect on what you've accomplished as well. How many women have you already trained under CodeGirls?
So we have trained over 800 women in CodeGirls, and we have placed over 150 in the tech industry. Other than that, we also do a lot of collaborations. So two nights ago, 6 of our girls graduated from a very, very expensive and prestigious data science bootcamp. So we also do a lot of placements in the sense that if a girl has high potential, we do collaborations and make sure that they get access to even higher, opportunities in terms of learning and working. So we are also working with a lot of, big tech companies to ensure that, they get the right opportunities.
Thank you so much, Faiza. Okay, excellent. Naureen, over to you. Same question. Why did you start?
Thank you so much, Samar, for having me. It's a pleasure to be among such a power-packed, panel of females as yourselves. Well, my background is a little different. I didn't start from tech, actually. I always wanted to become a doctor. So my background is really medicine. And, there's another story of why that shift happened. But I actually then joined my studies then happened in finance, and my first job was with a credit rating agency called PACRA. and I happen to be a specialist for the microfinance sector. So while I was, rating the sector, I had the opportunity to not only understand the intricacies of how microfinance banks and institutions operate, but I also had the chance to be affiliated with this program called the SMART campaign, which was at one time a project of the Center for Financial Inclusion at the World Bank. And while working with this program, so the SMART campaign actually worked for client protection principles of microfinance clients. And while we were working with this program, we actually came to know the ground level realities of the impact of lack of finance on people's lives. So the microfinance sector, as you're aware, was created to alleviate poverty. The mandate for the sector was to alleviate poverty. And when you actually dwell deeper into the sector, you actually see it's criticized for having high interest rates. But the challenge here wasn't these institutions earning high profits. When you really try to understand what the challenges around these institutions are, these institutions actually go on to target the riskiest of the segments. There's a lot of field work involved, which, with a lot of field officers, which culminates into very high operational costs. And then, the sector also doesn't receive funding very easily. So there's a high cost of funding. All of these culminate to translate into high interest rates, which unfortunately have to be passed on to the customers. That's when we actually, myself and my co-founder then and even now, Hamza Hussain, we looked into what can be done to actually bring these interest rates down and pass on the benefits to the microfinance clients. And what we see is operational cost happens to be the highest element of the interest rates that is charged. And that comes from inefficiencies because of the field officers or otherwise back and forth. This is like a 7-day to 2-week process for the credit disbursement to actually reach the customer's hands. So we decided that we have to solve this problem. And there was no better way but to do it with technology, which actually is a catalyst to bridge that gap. And we co-founded a company called Check-in Solutions, which was aimed at bridging the operation inefficiencies. And that did so via a digital field application. It actually automated the entire credit disbursement process. I think this we started back in 2015. I think we were a little ahead of our times. Terms such as entrepreneurship, fintech weren't even a thing. And I think that's when we actually met for the first time, the Karandas Fintech Disrupt Challenge. And fast forward, it was actually very tough working with institutions because either they did not have the tech budgets to be deployed in the institutions, or they did not have the understanding of tech. And so we decided, to create our own financial institution that would show, the sector how it's done. And that's when we actually approached our third co-founder, who happens to be the guru in microfinance. This is Mr. Nadeem Hussain. And, luckily our, visions, they aligned. And we decided to come up with Tez. Tez is actually the first microfinance, fully digital microfinance institution in Pakistan. When we're in the business of giving out small nano loans, short tenors. And we really want to cater to the and the underbanked, people who are not served by the conventional institutions. And why they're not is because they lack credible data. They do not have credit histories. They don't even have suitable collaterals. So we actually assess people using their alternative smartphone data, and we've developed algorithms in-house that help us assess them. And so that's what we've been doing. Credit has been the core. Tez actually is a full stack, technically a neobank. We provide credit, insurance, savings, and ultimately investment. So that's really the agenda of Tez, and we've been operating since 2018 now. So that's a bit about us.
And just to talk a little bit about the women angle. So how many of your beneficiaries are actually women?
That has been a very tough one for us. We started out with a very small number. Today, we lie at about 13% of the people that we're serving are women. That said, we try to focus on credit has been the product that we've been we launched with. And we did a project with the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, where the focus was actually female inclusion. And we had a chance to work in rural Sindh with female home-based workers. And it was really interesting. During our surveys, we actually, we interviewed both males and females from the same household, where the male of the household said, "How can I get credit?" The female of the household said, "How can I save?" And that's when we started, developing our other products, which was always in the vision. But, we recently launched the pilot of our digital Raska. And in development is another very exciting product, which is fractional gold savings, both wholly targeted towards females. And the agenda really here is to attract more, to support more women and make the journey easier for them.
Is that also why, Naureen, I just want to take a moment for you to elaborate the digital financial literacy trainings that you were doing for the women, and what was the response that you saw with that?
Yeah, I think literacy, it's not going to be a short-term, it's not going to bring in a short-term impact. It has to be a very long-term, I think, and a targeted approach, which not only caters to the females, but also the males in the society. Now, what we've actually seen is that, there are lots of challenges around why this is the case. One, we see the digital divide in terms of smartphone ownership. It's huge, it's a 40% gender divide. Then you talk about the financial inclusion gap. That also is about a 38 to 40% gap in terms of females owning bank accounts. And it really does culminate from, social norms. We've actually seen, in rural areas primarily, unfortunately, females are shamed if they own a smartphone, by their own family members. So that's one of the reasons why, the digital divide has been very difficult to overcome, but literacy plays a very, very crucial role. And I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface right now. I can't say, that we've actually achieved the kind of impact that we want to, but I think we have to start from somewhere, be it, literacy, in terms of cultural literacy, that actually culminates into digital and then ultimately financial literacy, right? So that's how it's been for us.
Thank you, Naureen. And just for our audience, just to highlight, right? So in a recent report produced by GSMA addressing the mobile gender gap in Pakistan, if I look at these figures, so in 2017, female mobile internet use in Pakistan was only 10%, and compared to 26% when we look at men. And in 2019, it's become 19% versus 37% when we compare to men, right? So obviously there is that improved internet usage, using the mobile phone, but like Naureen indicates, there are tons of cultural barriers and other barriers which limit the ownership of mobile phones for women, which of course then leads into the digital divide becoming bigger, or something that we definitely need to address as well. Okay, now besides these ladies, because they've been working very hard at different angles that they found for themselves, right? So literally in Pakistan, there are so many different challenges that it's a matter of which challenge do you want to address and which challenge do you want to champion, which cause do you want to champion. So both of them have picked distinct causes that they would like to support. But now I'd like both of them also to reflect on some other interventions that have been taking place in Pakistan very, very successfully to bridge the digital divide and really what the International Day of the Girl is about. So really coming up with opportunities, bridging the challenges that they're faced with. So Faiza, let's start with you. What are some of the initiatives that you're really fond of, etc., that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, so there are a lot of initiatives around women in technology in Pakistan. One of them that I work really closely with, and they are doing amazing work, is Pakistani Women in Computing. So this is again a community that does a lot of awareness, a lot of job placements, a lot of different activities to ensure that women get the right opportunities, and they also do a lot of skill building. So another is Tech Karo, which is again a training program that has been doing a lot of work in Pakistan, and I can see them expanding to other cities because they work very closely with academia. So that is another program that is great. Then we also see some programs that are not directly related to tech, but they are helping women in terms of being financially included as well as getting trained. So one is like another one is FemPro. So you see that they produce a lot of digital content around women entrepreneurship and business literacy, digital literacy, and stuff like that. So that's again really, really important. And now we see that a lot of international players are moving into Pakistan. So we are working with Tech for Girls to bring a lot of digital literacy programs here in Pakistan. So we did one last month, 2 of them are this month. So they have 2 tracks. One is teaching them how to build their own mobile applications, and another one is that they can start their e-store using Shopify. So you see that in bits and pieces, a lot of, because Pakistan is a big country and there are a lot of problems and a lot of women without access. So people are basically putting in their part by chipping away at the problem to make sure that, things get better.
Yes, thank you, Faiza. Absolutely. Naureen, would you like to add to that?
I think a lot of the names that Faiza mentioned, I definitely second them. In particular, Tech Karo, Code for Pakistan. I think they've been doing a great job when it comes to promoting female tech entrepreneurship in Pakistan. But I think the digital divide, as much as technology is important, I think there's much more that's also required for it, and there can be areas within financial inclusion. I think companies like Uran are doing a great job, and then in terms of, I think, providing platforms where females can actually come and develop their businesses, or they can be linked to markets. That's also a part of the digital divide. So I think the various organizations are working on this. Big or small, a lot of work is being done. I think, entities like RLCC, for example, there's lots of work that's happening on women entrepreneurship, but also at the same time, trying to help them to market their views. Companies like Poly and Other Stories, I think these companies are trying to make an impact in their little way. How fast the digital divide will be bridged, I think it'll happen step by step. I think that's 2 of the other companies, and then I think that there are lots of other companies within the microfinance space as well. Companies like Thirdeep Microfinance Institution, and then you've got Daman in Lahore. I think on the financial inclusion front, they've done a great job, and on the digital front, they are coming up with technologies to start to bridge that gap via technology, be it even if it's simple speech phones. Trying to bring those options available for women. So I think that's something, and I think JICA, in partnership with the Women Development Department, a lot of work is also being done over there, particularly on the financial inclusion and financial literacy side. So yes, a lot of work happening, and kudos to whoever is doing it, whether on a small level or a big level. I think it's needed.
Yes. Just to add to that, I think we talked a little bit about the entrepreneurs, and there are a number of initiatives at the moment now to support women, because in Pakistan, we've seen an increasing trend of home-based businesses led by women. They're able to produce clothing, jewelry, fashion, beauty, etc. So things like that, which they're able to do easily. And then, of course, they can also provide services. So graphic designing or content writing, etc., where we see more and more women entering into the field. And the sort of support which is becoming more, more prominent are digital trainings, so marketing trainings, Facebook marketing trainings, and so on. Some of them can be very specialized, some of them can be more generic. So I think we've seen an increase on that front. And personally, from Epiphany's front, we're also now looking at bridging the investment divide. And so since last year, we've been offering more investment readiness related trainings, because if they're not investor ready, if they haven't put in all of the hard work on measuring their traction, a lot of it comes back to the financial narrative and the customer narrative, the traction that they're able to share. and the records that they're able to maintain, and they have everything, but maybe on the record keeping side, we saw a big gap over there as well. So I think there are all these interventions that are happening and they're moving in the right direction. Another one that I'd like to highlight is She Loves Tech, which is a competition every year to highlight women in tech who are running their own enterprises, and it's you know, this is I think it's the third or the fourth year. And I participated in the first year a long time back, right? So for a fintech that we were then working on. So I think the best part that I see in the country right now is that some of these initiatives have become annual initiatives. So there is a consistency which is being built. Another one that I think is doing a phenomenal job is Standard Chartered's Women in Tech challenge that they run with Pakistan Innovation Foundation and Innoventions. So over there again, we see females focused and so on. So I think we're working on that front. Another one that I do want to highlight is Aurat Raj. So completely different from that perspective, but definitely bridging the digital divide related to hygiene, personal safety. You know, also she's conducted some self-defense trainings. And then I think she's also been doing some digital related trainings as well. So I think empowering women also, you know, when you're trying to bridge the digital divide, it is also about creating the right kind of environment for them to be productive in and be safe in, right? So, okay, so we've talked a lot about what's going on in the country as well now. And, you know, one of the questions that I have for you ladies is what more needs to be done? So Faiza, we'll start again with you.
The biggest barrier is, I think there are two big barriers for the work that we do. One is, of course, a cultural barrier in terms of how women are viewed. And the second is lack of infrastructure. And this is something that we keep on experiencing. And I think on that front, you know, government intervention is required. So a lot of areas are still without access to the internet. And then, of course, I've been talking about nonstop the idea that maybe subsidies should be given to women in terms of getting technology infrastructure, because technology infrastructure is expensive. And even with the girls that we teach coding to, a big percentage, like around 25 to 30% of them do not have tech infrastructure at home. So it becomes really difficult for them to go home and just, you know, learn anything. So when they don't have a computer or an internet, and in a lot of cases, if they do have a computer, that's a shared device among the whole family. And then, you know, men in the family usually hold that device, so women do not get the time to kind of work on those things. So infrastructure is a problem that needs to be resolved maybe in ways of providing subsidies, or again, then also to build infrastructure to make sure that more areas have connection to high-speed internet. And then on the cultural side, I think a lot of work that's been done by communities like Soul Sisters Pakistan, or you know, you also see Caterpillars, a program that's basically work with social enterprises, helping them with becoming finance ready and a lot of other things. So these are the programs that are helping little by little, and most of these programs are also virtual. So that makes them kind of accessible to a lot of women who are not part of, you know, big cities. So yeah, these are the things that are happening, and I think these need to happen more. And in some areas, we do need government intervention. So a program like CodeGirls can only exist in, you know, in a small place, or the kind of resources that are required are limited, you know, are big, and we have a limited capacity. But if something like this gets reproduced, I think that should be coming from the government level to make sure that it's accessible to everyone, because we do get a lot of queries from women from rural areas that they would like something like that to happen to their you know, community, but it's you know, it's outside of our hands in terms of being a small organization. Yeah.
I think those are really, really valid points, absolutely, about the internet, because a lot of our programming ever since COVID struck all of us, most of them are virtual now. And that's the biggest problem, not having access to good internet. And then, of course, not having access to a digital device. So sometimes they can log in using somebody's smartphone, but then when it comes to rolling out the assignments or the practice that they need, or in your case, if somebody is providing a freelancing training and then they're supposed to become freelancers after that and execute projects, how are they going to do it, right? It's going to be a challenge. So absolutely. Naureen, from your end, what else do you think needs to happen?
I think there are two core areas for me, and I think they are linked to the field that I am in, because that's the experience that I've had. One definitely is cultural, and I definitely agree with Faiza on that. I think I'll come to that one later. The other one, see, I think a lot of work is being done in terms of bringing in policy initiatives. For me, the challenge that I see is the execution and implementation of those policies. You do see the state bank coming up with, various initiatives for women economic empowerment. Even deputy governor of the state bank has been really supporting this cause. For banks as well, they are being encouraged to serve more and more females, and they have now targets to meet within, their own banking regimes, where they have to lend to more women or lend at lower cost of, lend at lower cost of funding. And, in some cases, to encourage female economic empowerment or enterprise, there are also guarantees that are being given to banks. But I think, unfortunately, with all these institutions, they're still working with their legacy mindsets. They still require you to give, even if, let's suppose, there's a 40% personal guarantee from the state bank, they will still require you to give a 60% cash collateral. Hence, innately, the fabric of these institutions is such that they're not willing to support or even take on that risk, because females are considered to be a higher asset class, a riskier asset class. So I think that mindset definitely has to switch. We've seen entities like Hyat and a lot of other microfinance institutions that have done amazing work for females. So I think on that front, definitely implementation has to start happening. In terms of digital divide, I think, the challenge actually starts happening when you start bringing in these policy initiatives with subsidies and all, but fraud starts to, creep in, where it's actually the males who start taking advantage on the names of the females. So, that's a very, very delicate line to manage. You saw with projects such as BISP, which was for the, which was a safety net for the very grassroots base of the pyramid females. There was a lot of fraud that came in, but then again, there was a large proportion of the population that did benefit from it. So I think at the risk of, you will see fraud coming in, you'll have to come up with, solutions to circumvent it. It probably won't get to zero, but you still will be serving a much, bigger population that does deserve it. So I think that mindset definitely has to switch, whether it means lower taxation for female-led businesses, lower cost of funding when it comes to, giving out loans, or, even in terms of ownership of assets that are deployed in these institutions, whether it's smartphones, whether it's, technology that's deployed in terms of hosting, for example, which is one of the biggest costs for, providers like ourselves. So I think all those levels have to be considered. In terms of cultural divide, I think it's not going to happen overnight. And I really feel it actually ultimately is dependent on the female of the house, so the mothers actually. How they actually ultimately train their sons to treat women will change the society, and it will happen over generations. And I feel you do see that change coming in, where I think one of the biggest challenges is in terms of the respect that's given to women. And when I say respect, it's actually respect in terms of respect of opinions, respect of their needs, respect of their requirements, or, so I think it's just respect on a lot of levels. It's not just respecting an individual, it's respecting everything that surrounds them. So I think that mindset shift will happen with cultural shift. And men have, we actually participated in the She Loves competition as well once. And this is where we learned, men of quality do not fear equality. So I think that shift has to start happening, and it's just a lot of moving pieces. Let's hope they keep on moving faster.
Thank you, ladies. I hope that, this talk is heard large and wide and it circulates, because I think, really we've given them some clear recommendations on what needs to be done to different parties that are involved in different stakeholders. Now, so as a final closing, closing point, to this particular conversation, I would like you guys, in view of the International Day of the Girl Child, either give a message to young girls out there, young girls and young women, or else give a message to a previous self, to your former self, right? So it can be either way. What is the kind of message that you would give to yourself, maybe 10 years back? And perhaps that serves as your message, or else take a moment and think about a message that you'd like to communicate to young girls and young women today. Faiza, obviously we're going to start with you.
I think my message would be to keep at it, do not lose hope. This is something that I've seen with the girls that we teach, that they lose heart because they think it's too difficult. And, most of my job is around that, to make sure that they don't lose heart, that, they keep at it. And this is extremely important because usually women are taught that it's not for you. So they internalize this message and they just say that, oh, it's too tough, I don't want to do it. So that is the only message that I have, that whatever you are doing, just keep at it, and you will crack it soon enough. And whatever you are listening to, whatever you are hearing from people around you, make sure that before absorbing that or before thinking it as your truth, you process it. Don't take it as it is. So I think that's the only thing that I want to say.
Thank you, Faiza. Naureen?
Well, I'd say challenge convention, and that doesn't mean you have to become a rebel. I think when you do challenge convention, you have to take the world with you. And I think for females especially, I think one very important thing is that there will be thousands of voices around you that will tell you you can't, just like Faiza said. And well, what I've learned from my own experiences, the best way to do it is not to become rebellious or defensive, but the best way to do it is actually to become the best version of yourself, train yourself to become better than those voices, train yourself, to you just try to challenge your own limitations, your own limits as well. And I think that's probably the best way to prove that you can do it, and to make sure that people respect you for your actual worth, rather than just being bogged down by other people's opinions. So I think try to be a better version of yourself, educate yourselves, train yourselves, just practice, and just try to become a hustler. One thing, you don't ask, you don't get. So I think stay at it, persevere, and be true to your purpose.
Just to add to that, right? So a lot of the onus from what Faiza and Naureen are saying comes back on the woman. So, stay true to your cause, keep at it, do the hard work, filter through the information that you're hearing from, right, left, and center, really process it before you absorb it. And I think at the end of the day, one of the things that I'd like to add to that is have confidence in yourself, believe in yourself. And a great way to do that is to find female role models that you look up to and that you can connect to. Because they will, if you're able to find one champion, you don't need a lot. If you're able to find one mentor, one champion, one supporter, they will lead you through the days when you're going to feel that it's too tough and you want to give up. And there are always going to be these people who will have shared the challenges that they overcame. So the strategies are out there, right? So, definitely do that. And at the end of the day, find also the male allies who are going to support you. So is it your brother who's, in tune with your cause? Is it your father? Is it your uncle? Somebody who can also support you in the household. And it doesn't have to be a male character, a male figure. It could be your mother. It could be a sister who's done extremely well for herself, right? So just find those role models internally and support network, and fly, right? We're here to cheer you on. Okay, thank you. Kimberly, over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I've been listening off camera, but following carefully the conversation. And I just wanted to recap on a few things that stood out for me and things that resonated with me, which I think will also resonate with our women leaders and beyond who are tuning into this discussion on this International Day of the Girl Child. I actually start with the last one I wrote down first, and I can tell that you're a former and current finance professional. You don't ask, you don't get is the thing that I was taught very early in my career. I'm actually a former banker, structured finance, CFO. And that was one of the first things one of my early bosses said to me, and it's so true. And I think it's something we need to remind women in particular. Often I think women sit back and sort of try to make things perfect or wait to be asked, but actually you don't ask, you don't get. What's the worst that can happen? They say no, or they redirect you, or you go back and tweak and adjust. And so that confidence to ask is so important. And that's one thing that I've held through my own personal career, both from banking into philanthropy and beyond. I also love the focus on inclusive innovation. You know, you surveyed, you asked, you tried to find out why there were a lower percentage of women, and you found out, you know, they were thinking at it from a completely different lens. You know, they weren't looking to go and get credit, they were looking to save. And so asking the question, designing and iterating your solutions with the women and the people you're trying to help is key. And so often things kind of get dropped from policy papers or good intentions, and people forget to do what I call laying the pipe work in the middle. That's the hard part. And you talked about execution and implementation, and that's something that our community is all about. You know, how do we take things from good ideas and things that everybody knows need to happen and need to change, and they're even putting resources against it, but they're forgetting to connect the dots. And it takes women like yourselves who have that experience, who come at it from different angles, from different life experience, your work at a credit rating agency, and your work, you know, understanding that you need to get these women trained up, but also give them opportunities and get them in to positions where they can actually get the experience and help them, and including subsidies. There is a place for subsidies, and often the tech, it can be very low tech. You know, you talked about the simple phones. You know, not everybody needs a smartphone, but also access is important. And I think we've all seen that with the COVID pandemic. Everybody can relate, no matter where you are in the world, at the challenges of not having the infrastructure and technology. And it's happening. This is our last day of lockdown here in Sydney for 3.5 months. Melbourne has been the longest lockdown city in the world. And it really threw up the inequity right away of expecting kids to move online in, you know, we have refugee settings here, low resource settings where there might be one phone in the house, and there might be 5 children and 2 parents trying to work from home or do education. So all of the things that you're talking about, which are everyday challenges, hopefully people will have a greater understanding and appreciation for those challenges through their lived experience of the pandemic. And finally, I just think that I want to take my hats off to all of you, and you are all automatically members of the Global Women Leaders community, because you have stepped out and you are the role models. You know, you've come from other careers, you've stepped into this space, and you're doing the work, which is connecting those dots in the pipe work. And what I hope we can bring as our platform, just as you're trying to give the women platform, is to provide a platform to amplify the great work that you're doing and tell more people about it, and help them realize that we need to do more work in that missing middle, because you're coming up with some great solutions. You know, I'm working on a female founders fund here in Australia. All the issues are the same, but yours are 10 times more challenging, but the tools are the same. And so if we can get this right in Pakistan, we can get it right anywhere. And I applaud you all for the work that you do, and very proud to host you today. So on that note, I just wanted to thank you all. Samar, your moderating was fantastic, and hopefully the people listening have taken away a lot from this conversation, and we'd like to continue following your work. And thank you as well for the good work that you do, and connect you with our women who might be able to connect some of those dots with you. So you're most welcome to continue the conversation, and I'm very proud to host you all today. And for the International Day of the Girl Child, I think my wish is that we have more women joining together. You know, often these solutions have come from a different lens. They're not necessarily designed in an inclusive way, and they're well-intentioned, but you know, you're coming at it from a different angle. And even talking about the right environment and the safety and the cultural issues, it's not just about money and tech. There's a much bigger picture that we need to paint for people. And just like, you know, literacy is long-term, so is this journey of educating people to take them with us along our collective journey of helping sort of bridge that digital divide. So Samar, I'll sort of hand back to you to close and thank our guests.
So thank you very much, Kim. I think that was a great summary that you did. Faiza and Naureen, You know I love you guys. So thank you very much for making time as always to spread the word, not only of the good work that you're doing, but also just all of the intellectual points that you've left for all the others to think about and ponder and then hopefully take action. So thank you very much, Faiza and Naureen, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.